We're live.
Live.
We're live.
Woo!
Welcome to America Heals, episode number 16. My, oh my, time is flying by. There's Mr. Clean, Mr. Zach. What's up, dog? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Saw you the other night on, I saw much of Steven's scope the other night. You guys did a great job. That was a great scope. So good stuff going on all over the internets. So tonight we're going to dig deep into the chug-a-lug of the process train. We are kicking off right now. We're trying to like and share this thing with everybody. So please forward this and send out some Twitters if you can and some other communique, which would be helpful. It was a great conversation. Great conversation. And we are live.
Woo!
Welcome to the show, everybody. We are here in the last evening of January. Hard to believe that this month has been only 1 month long. If we go back to the very first hours of New Year's Eve, we didn't know what was about to happen. And then just a few days later, we saw history being made in Georgia with two incredibly progressive candidates winning the election and flipping the Senate blue, which finished sort of the final smack of a blue wave that took over this country. And of course, then we've endured the rest of the month has been marred by what happened on the 6th on Epiphany Sunday, a dark day in this country's history when an insurrection, a planned coup that we're learning more and more about, we're going to continue to learn more and more about, took over our capital and tried to kill our government, tried to kill our leaders in the Senate and in the House and the vice president, and also tried to kill our government. So we continue to talk about that here at America Heals. And I'm going to welcome the guests here as we get going, but I'm going to first begin. In fact, I'll just wave and say, hi, Ace. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Tim. And now I'm going to take the show back over for a quick second
There
and
you go.
say,
Now you're back.
now I'm going to say, I'm a dad of 3 kids. I'm a husband of 26 years. I'm a pastor in the Lutheran Church. I lead a congregation of folks, and I want to take time because we've been pushed around by so many other things to talk about, and just lift up on this show that I support Black Lives Matter. And I want to take time to do that because Donald Trump has once again pushed his way into our hearts. And I want to stop and say that because I'm a white guy. And one of the things that happened in the last year is an incredible amount of learning that I've done about racism and I'd studied it before, but the dismantling of it, the ways that policies that can actually affect things need to be more than just a talking point. They need to be on the tip of your tongue when opportunities rise to make progress. And so I just want to say that. And I don't know where my guys are on this, but I just think, you know what, man, Black Lives Matter. And the reason, I'll tell you a quick story. There's a friend of mine. She's a pastor in Denver. She's an African-American woman whose family is originally from Philadelphia. And she tells a story about her uncle that she remembers hearing about. She told me to use this story whenever I wanted to. She told me about her uncle, and her uncle had a girlfriend, and it was 1948, and it's kind of a live-in girlfriend, and they had a deal that after 5 years, if neither one of them ever got married, then they'd kind of get married. And 5 years goes by, and they're still living together. And, now it's the early 50s. And the day comes where the woman says to the uncle, hey, we're getting married. It's time. And he says, no. And I don't think it went well. And she killed him. She poisoned him.
Jeez.
Yeah. And this is a story that happened in a lot of Black families, because what happened when they called the police to tell them, the family found him and knew what happened, to tell the police that this woman killed him, the cops said, Well, don't bother calling in. That doesn't matter because it's a black man and it doesn't matter. We're not sending a cop out there. The reason Black Lives Matter is a phrase is because it's that basic of a human thing. They matter. And I can't fucking believe I have to say that. So that's why I start the show with that tonight. Sorry to drop a heavy bomb on you guys, but it's the end of January and shit has gone sideways, and I want to put my priorities straight, and I want to start with what I want to start with. So thank you for entertaining my process, and I hand off the floor.
Right on. I just want to say, as a fellow white male pastor, that I agree with you 100% from the bottom of my heart and the center of my focus. You know, as a minister and as a father, I was challenged.
It isn't about that to me, man. It's not even about the ministry. It's about, like, as a dad, you know?
Well, I mean, the reality is, as a white minister, we benefit from every system in society, from being white to being a pastor to being, you know, a successful white male. We are the essence of white male privilege, and my point is that it's up to us whether we claim that and do something about it or just pretend like it doesn't exist and try to just go ahead like it's no big deal. It makes me sick every time someone says racism is a problem in this country, because I know personally and also professionally that's a huge problem in every single community across this country. Black Lives Matter because all lives matter. All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter and until every life of person of color matters. And then you go down the slope. Every person from every culture matters. Every person of every religion matters. If you're Muslim, you matter just as much as if you're Christian. If you're black, you matter, as much as if you're white. The real challenge is that we're born into white privilege, and it's up to us to admit the fact that we are born into a white privilege system, and we have the power to change it. And if we don't change it, then it won't change. That's why it's so important, I think, and I agree with you 100%, to start the show this way and put it out there. Black Lives Matter. And as a white male in society and in church, I am saying that I understand I'm born into a system of white privilege, and I'm doing what I can with my power and influence to challenge that system and change that system so that it's a just system for all people, regardless of whatever your identity is, your color, your sexual orientation, your socioeconomic status, your country of origin, whatever it is. I am someone who stands for equality and equity in this country in every way possible, in the church and in society.
So absolutely. I mean, Black Lives Matter because they're lives. We should treat them all. And whenever you hear people start breaking down the wording or say something like Blue Lives Matter and anything else matters, what they're trying to do is take away from the fact that we have to actually say that Black Lives Matter, because
and keep it as the strike zone, right?
Yeah, because there's a huge disparity, because no one's saying White Lives Matter because it's not an issue. We're not looked upon that we know White Lives Matter because we're not pushed down. We don't fear for cops. They
come if something happens and you call them.
Yeah, I would call them and I wouldn't worry about them. We don't go through the same experiences as everybody else. So of course, Black Lives Matter. And anytime you hear anybody take away and start going with any other commentary, what they're really trying to do is take away, to just move the target away and not talk about Black lives, that being an issue. And then they'll start always jumping into race and it's not the same and doing a calculation. I'm a math person. I like to look at numbers. And whenever everybody's looking at the big number, trying to make it like, well, 95%, there's 5%. That's a lot of percent. Look at the numbers that are affected. And the fact is, Black people don't experience life the same way white people do. And we should recognize it, and we should work towards fixing that. We don't all know how. It's hard for me to speak for Black people because I don't experience life as they do. But we all have had experiences where it's been uncomfortable for whatever reason of prejudice or something like that. And I would assume it's that event times every day. I come from I'm not trying to make myself anywhere close, but it's just an understanding. I come from a country where my religion is looked down upon as less of a human. And you're basically put in a corner, and people don't look at you the same way. But in the end of the day, I'm white, and we left that country because of that. But I can imagine religion is a little bit different because how would you know what religion I am? Now, there are ways based on my last name, I would get made fun of because my last name, you can, in certain countries, I'm not going to give you my last name, but in this country, if I gave you my last name, you probably wouldn't know my religion. You might not. In that country, you would know what my religion is. And there was once people found out my family's last name, we would be treated very poorly. So I would imagine it's like that every single day of your life, except you can't hide your skin color. You can't hide. I can hide my last name. I can change my last name. I can leave. I assume it's that times all the time, which is why we really need to work on that and understand we need people to work on that. So absolutely.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your words.
And my bridge, when someone's attacking Black Lives Matter, usually the organization or whatever, they start to go off on their little tangent. I like to just interrupt and say, cops are the executive branch, not the judicial branch. So anytime they execute somebody, that's well beyond their powers as the executive branch. And so we should all be against cops executing anyone in the street. We obviously understand there's times where cops have to make a decision and defend themselves. I mean, we get that. But obviously we're talking about situations of people running away, people already subdued that are then being killed by the police. That's obviously an extreme offense against that person's civil rights, obviously, killing them illegally. And it's an offense on all of our civil rights when cops kill somebody illegally. So if a libertarian or a conservative can't agree that cops executing people in the street is wrong, then you really have nowhere to go. But I've made some inroads with that argument. The second thing I'll say about the insidious nature of racism, I had a kind of multicultural friend group in high school. Won't go into all that either, but Filipino friend, Taiwanese friend. Taiwanese friend is my closest friend from high school. And, we'd leave a situation. Let's say we're in a department store and you get poor service, and we'd leave and he'd be really bummed out about it. And finally, second time it happened, third time, like, what's going on, man? Like, why are you so bummed out that, we got crappy service at McDonald's or whatever? And he just sort of like basically just subtly said, like, I think that person was racist. And you're just sitting here, that's like the definition of white privilege. We get bad service. We think the server sucks. We get bad service in a department store. We think the department store sucks. If you're visibly not white, if you're a same-sex couple, transgender, anything like that, you get bad service. It's always going to be this insidious thing in the back of your head. Did that person do that because they don't like me, because of a prejudice or a racial belief? And unfortunately, it's, that kind of thing is what I think, would add to what Ace is saying of, really daily stress about something that even if you're wrong 3/4 of the time and it just really was bad service, it's always going to be rattling around back there. And it's just one very small example of white privilege that, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't think I've ever left somewhere and thought that server hated me because I'm a different race than them. I mean, it only crossed my mind because of these examples from my friend. I would have never organically felt that bad service was due to my race. And so,
I've been thinking a lot about this QAnon stuff and the deprogramming of Q, and it was a very interesting discussion Anderson Cooper had last night with a guy who was, all of a sudden just immediately just able to just unlearn Q, and within weeks go, oh yeah, no, I guess I was totally duped. Like, blew my mind when I saw that.
Yeah.
And
he apologized to Anderson Cooper about assuming he was eating baby.
It also was really informative to me, because what it really gave an example of is the fact that we all got our teeth kicked in this country in March. We all did. Everybody, rich, poor, sideways, upside down, the whole country got like, holy shit, we're home. And we were all there, and we were trying to figure it out. And we were watching the Trump and Steen show up there, in and out, figuring it out, screwing it up. And then we get to Memorial Day weekend, end of May. People were like, man, some people were going out boating. Some people were staying home, but it was the thing. And late in the day on Memorial Day, we got to see this video show up that took over June. And the riots and the protests and the craziness that occurred after it very quickly became its own story because the media wanted it to. But with Breonna Taylor, the Ahmaud Arbery, and with George Floyd, and they just became iconic moments in time where we had nothing to do but watch it. Pretty soon, I mean, I didn't have a hard time in my white Lutheran church having people having really, really in-depth discussions about their own racism and their white privilege. Like, it just happened overnight, all summer. And we get to the end of the summer and we start to see different riots and different protests and different things happening in Seattle and other things that kept kind of getting weird. And then we got to the Trump lie, and the beginning of the big lie happens just around the middle of September was when the big lie just starts taking off. And then it just became a prediction. And then he got COVID right away in October, which killed all of October. That was the October surprise. Historically, if you're a political scientist out there, the October surprise was Trump getting COVID right the day or whatever, 2 days after getting his ass handed to him by Joe Biden in the first debate. Oops. Now we don't have to look at this guy and listen to him for 3 weeks of the last 5 weeks. We saw him and he was doing his bullshit, but he wasn't campaigning. And then it's time to rally, and he rallied and he rallied and he didn't have any platform, blah, 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 blah. What happened during that time was he moved the white privilege, moved its strike zone back into being about Trump. But for 3 months this summer, we were getting somewhere. And I'll be done with this tirade in the sense of saying this. Ace, your family, when they experienced what they experienced, you think it affected their economic standing? You think it affected the opportunity of what they felt like they could try to do in the society? Imagine what that's done to our economy with people of color who feel oppressed. And I know that there's a lot of people who've moved through it. And they do well by doing that. But the truth of it is that this is an economic issue. And it was not allowed to be something that was talked about between the two parties. It didn't happen with the Republicans. They didn't address it. They called it riots. Stand by the blue. And they kicked the can. And now we're back. And Joe Biden is doing these 4 things. He's got these 4 monsters to fight. First is COVID. Second is the environment shit. The other is the economy. And then the one we're starting with tonight is race. And it's as big as the other 3. So anyway, I mean, Joe Biden is moving in with the immigration package. Joe Biden is coming in the door and he's keeping this thing centerpiece. And I think it's up. We've been talking about this in our pregame stuff about what's it like to have 4 white guys on a screen. And you're right. We would love to have some people of color and we'd love to have some women. So please hit us up at americahealsshow@gmail.com and we'll get together with you and see if you can't be on the show. But until then, is there any more important work than for white guys to be talking about learning this shit? Like, we're the ones that have to do the work.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying. It's not going to change unless we join in the effort to change it. I mean, that was one of the biggest slogans from the civil rights movement is go clean up your own backyard. We have work to do, you know, and right now with the country more divided than ever, you know, over race and politics and even religion. I mean, economy. We have every single system that is seriously divided and polarized right now. We have serious work to do because none of it's going to change unless people take it on and say, I'm going to join the effort to change it. I have totally made that commitment in my life. My life is committed to help changing it. That's why, you know, I'm honored to be on the show. It's one more opportunity to put my name and my voice out there and say, I'm committed to fighting against racism with my career, with my life, with my family, because that's what it takes. It takes us committing to change it with our lives. And I'm a white guy.
You know, we do hear a lot about this, and I agree we're divided as a country, but I think we're actually quite together as a country because Joe Biden, we've talked about, he's a great person. He's not a rock star. He's not anything special. He's just an ordinary good person. He's not Obama. He's not one of these figures that people are super passionate about just to vote for him. And he was able to get the most votes out of anybody. And they weren't just votes against Donald Trump. They were votes against, we need to make the change and progress as a country towards everything we're talking about. The race, the economics, everything. So even though we might be divided, the bigger portion of this country is steams ahead, and they've proven by voting. So if the other side doesn't really want to come along, they need to understand that they are in an extreme minority. They lost the House, they lost the Senate, they lost by 7 million votes? That's a lot of votes. That's like 4, 5, 6 states, depending on which states. So, you know, like I always say, it's all about the numbers, and the numbers are Joe Biden is in extreme majority on everything. He's got the votes, he's got the Senate, he's got the House. The other guys, we just ran the platform, and most of America agreed to it. So we don't really need the other side. They should come along with us. In fact, if I was a Republican, I would look within myself and try to figure out how is it that what we're trying to sell doesn't get us a win in any form of the Congress. What's the problem? You know,
Can you?
huh?
You guys hear?
Yeah, I can
When you
hear
leaned forward, you went real quiet, but you seem good again now.
Here, and I got too far. Sorry, people are asking, and I was trying.
Yeah.
I just
but the thing is, I mean, so people voted, and so people got into the conversation over the summer, and people voted, and here we are going into this thing. And Ace, don't you think it's because Joe Biden flows with the idea that there is truth that can guide us? Truth doesn't emanate from him. Truth doesn't emanate from some idea that he comes up with or has conspired to pull off. He's subjected to the truth. He follows the truth. And I think that that's what Americans in our process, that's why I put chug-a-lug on the process. The truth does its own work.
Yeah. And he doesn't sell himself, which is another thing that he sells the Democratic policies, the ideas of the Democratic Party. And he sold those ideas, and people voted for the ideas. They didn't vote for Joe Biden just because it's Joe Biden. They also voted because he had ideas, and they trusted him to hire professionals, which we've reviewed before, that the professionals he has hired is the best of the best. And this has always been my issue with Trump, other than many other issues. But the biggest issue with Trump is he started with I don't know, like a D team at best. There were a couple of decent figures in the beginning, but he ended with non-ranked teams, like, junior high school teams, people that did not have the education, did not have any experience in huge important jobs that they needed to do. And somehow the Republican Party keeps on selling this idea that we need to put people that have never done the job, never trained in the job, into that job to break the system. But this whole deep state thing is nonsense, because you get the mess that we get now with everything that's coming out. 20 million vaccines missing. How do you think you lose 20 million vaccines? Well, you put Joe Schmo that doesn't know what he's doing in charge of vaccine distribution, and he's not writing down where they're going. This is the type of government you get when you hire people that weren't trained in their job. And last point on this is, we were sold a bill of goods that never came. The whole thing with Donald Trump was he was going to be a CEO of the country, and he was going to hire the right people to do this job. There's no way. I've worked in Fortune 500 companies. I've worked in 3 of them. There's no way that Donald Trump would succeed as a CEO of any of those any of my companies that he's worked with. You have to hire proper people. You can't just take people off the streets and go, here you go run 500 stores and see how it goes. You've never done it before. This is what was done to the country.
Well, I would say the other key piece about Joe Biden in talking about the truth is that Joe Biden admits that there's problems.
Yeah.
At the beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly. From day one. I'm never going to forget Joe Biden's first day in office. Hey, Joe, how does it feel? It feels great. I'm on my way to the White House right now because we got a lot of work to do, and we're starting today. He went straight to the office. He walked in front of the White House and waved at everybody, and he took his ass inside the White House and immediately got to work. The truth with him is he's willing to admit there's problems. The biggest issue with Trump is when it came to real problems, his whole tactic was to deny the truth of the problem. He denied COVID was as bad as it was. He denied the economy was as bad as it was. He just went deny, deny, deny. We can't get anywhere if we're denying the problem exists. The only way to move forward is to name the problem and work on the problem with facts and solutions, not denying and then trying to cover it up, with lie or conspiracy after lie and conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
I like that Joe too. His branding's been very good. He could have said, I'm going to have a diverse cabinet. I'm going to be inclusive, blah, blah, blah. And he may have even said some of those words. But what he did that was really bright was he said, I'm going to have a cabinet that looks like America. So that undercut any possibility. If he had said it diverse, inclusive, multiculturalism, those would have all been easy targets to attack. But instead, he just went straight to the point and said, my cabinet's going to reflect the makeup of our country. And who can argue with that? I mean, that's a sound point.
Absolutely. And going back to race, one of the most offensive things that Trump did was end anti-racism discrimination training. He's like, you don't need to be trained in how to not be racist because it's not a problem. That is throwing gasoline on the fire that's the source of the problem. And the 1776 report, I don't know if you guys talked about that, but I mean, one of the first things Biden's administration did was just yoink, take that back and say, no, we're not releasing this as anybody.
So just so people kind of understand where that 1776 was, we can be shocked about the racism and the misogyny and the false history that was going to come. But the one thing that Trump did have in his education platform, there was only one thing, and it was to however they said it, to teach to teach more American like education. And this 1776 project was literally going to be the basis for a new teaching of American history that DeVos was going to put in place in the second term. And it was going to be all around how America was and is, according to this, a white nationalist country from its origins. And that Andy Jackson was the greatest American president, and Donald Trump is the next president since him that actually, killed as many buffalo and Indians as Trump did, and they're like the two P's of the greatness of America. And oh my God.
I know. It literally starts out, you need to realize from a historic standpoint that a lot of people owned slaves, and back then it wasn't a contentious issue the way it is now, which is to say we shouldn't be upset about slavery. Don't look back and be like, that was a wrong thing for us to do, and I'm glad that the Civil War happened. Don't do that, because you just don't understand the historic, perspective.
So Jeff, why do you think it was Pompeo's last words, dude? Right? The last thing that guy got a chance to do. This is a Harvard educated lawyer. He went to isn't he first in his class at West Point?
Class is West Point. He was, I think, a heavy artillery commander, like a tank division commander or something.
And he's the Secretary of State. And the last thing he says is that America is not multicultural at its core, and multiculturalism is evil. And I don't even, how did he say it at the very end?
Multiculturalism is basically cloaked authoritarianism.
Right.
That wokeness and multiculturalism are authoritarian regimes, basically.
Wow.
So here's to you, Mike.
I mean,
we're doing this show just
Yeah.
to you, just for you, pal, because fuck that shit.
Yeah, fuck you.
I always try to think, because history repeats itself, and you always want to look at other countries. And what if Germany comes out with a report just like this about concentration camps?
Totally.
And go, well, everybody was throwing Jewish people and disabled people into concentration camps and killing all of them. We really shouldn't. I mean, that was just part of the game. I mean, it was part of the history, but what if they start doing things like that?
What if in the 1990s they had erected statues of Hitler and Rommel and all their leaders, like the South did after the Civil War? I mean, can you even imagine if Germany had erected a statue to any of those people?
And what if you just start walking around and all of a sudden there's a Hitler or an SS, after the war, after they lost?
No, totally. And to take that a step further, that's the same argument they're using now to not hold the Republicans who voted to question the election and the people, the insurrectionists who attacked the Capitol. They're saying we shouldn't hold them accountable because it will cause conflict, and we should focus on peace. And that's exactly what they said about the Nazis. They said we should not, even the U.S. in the beginning said we shouldn't go against the Nazis because it will cause conflict. And then we look back on it now and we're like, how could we have possibly said that? Because it is so obvious now that it was egregious. And I'm submitting now, it's so obvious now that it's egregious.
No, wait. Are you talking about Rubio this week?
Well, I mean, just
he said the same thing.
It's it's an example.
And so I'm giving you shit, dude.
Totally.
I'm saying that was what Rubio said this week, and we got to move on. We got to get past this. We can't look at the brokenness that got us into this place. In fact, we're going to deny that it was actually anything that happened. It was a mob. It was some protesters.
It's rewriting history, which is much easier if you're on the wrong side of history. It's you definitely want the history rewritten if you're on the wrong side of history.
Absolutely.
Why?
Look at how not settled the Civil War is. It happened in the 1860s, and there's still. You talk to someone from the South, and they'll give you this big long taxation without representation. It was about the Congress. It was about all these different issues. Nothing to do with slavery. Blah 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 blah.
I'm trying to do the thing.
I don't know. I don't know how he did it. It was magical. We'll have to ask him.
But interesting enough, we don't get any. Nope. I think it's like smaller, Force Small Can you
Somehow it worked with the comments though. When he brought the comment up, we shrunk, and then when he put the comment back, we got big again.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But interesting enough, we don't have any statues of any British generals during
Right.
independence, right? Why don't we put them up as well?
And then, by the way, it's also illegal to it's illegal to say anything about any lies about World War II in Germany. It's illegal to fly a Nazi flag in Germany. Like,
Yes.
you know, they're a relatively liberal country with a lot of freedoms like we have, but you can't walk around saying the Holocaust didn't happen in Germany. It's illegal. So, in fact, I think they were worried. Wasn't there some situation where Trump was supposed to go to the Olympics or something, and there was a situation where he might have said something illegal about World War II?
Yeah.
Or I may have my wires crossed. Somebody was trying to visit Germany, and they were like, "He can't say anything dumb, or they'll actually arrest him." But you know, here we are in the U.S. where people still feel free to fly the Confederate flag. You know, it's just so. What I realized during the last show when Marty was talking about this stuff, I mean, we haven't figured out. Yeah, I mean, Buffalo Bill rode on the top of trains and shot buffalo full time just to starve Indians. You have the Trail of Tears. You have the Civil War. You have all these situations. You have Benghazi. You have all these situations where people can't even agree on the truth of the situation. So, you know, the only thing I can say is people don't have to agree on what happened on January 6th. Put the people in jail anyway.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. It's like you said earlier, democracy isn't based on all of us agreeing with each other. It's based on us being able to disagree and still be able to work together for common goals and move forward.
Censure the nutcase that's spouted QAnon BS Republicans. That'll help create unity, and it's free. You know, you just have to tell a lunatic to stop being a lunatic publicly. You know, that's
so that's
free,
where I was. That's where I was.
Criminals is not free.
This QAnon thing is the epitome and height of white privilege.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That was where I was trying to get with the striking nature of how fast that guy is able to go. Oh man, and I've seen a few of them who are like, oh man, I didn't know. Donald Trump must have just tricked me. I just can't believe it. And we're still in January. This happened this month. And so if they are that shallow of an individual, first of all, I don't believe it. So that's where I'm at on most of it. But if they are that shallow of a dim-witted, just complete goon, if they're really that dumb, then we have a much deeper problem. But I don't believe that. I think that people participated in QAnon because it was a lot easier to talk about that than it was to talk about the fact that you really can't argue with these Black Lives Matter people after seeing George Floyd die. I think that that's what happened. And I think Donald Trump was a big jerk off for the entire United States, for everybody who supported him, who kicked the can of progress down the road, knowing that progress was going to come. Putting off immigration bills, putting off hard decisions, just putting it off. The only thing that got done during Trump's reign of lunacy and terror was a tax bill. The rest of it, Joe, is almost completely overdone, and the rest of it's just going to be taken care of by attrition. And we're going to be cleaning up Trump's mess like a stain until COVID is gone. And then all of those people who've lost lives and abilities and organ health and all sorts of other things over this time, we'll get to pick up those pieces too, because we were too lazy to take care of our shit. That's what's up. And right now we got 4 things on the fire. We got to deal with our environment. I don't know. I was going to ask this question. Let me shift gears to the environment for just a second and ask, don't you think we're at a point where we would ask, and maybe we should lobby on this show for $1 billion or $10 billion prize for the next energy breakthrough in this country? Like, don't you think that Joe should and the Democrats should put some incentives out there for our great scientists and our great minds to solve some of these problems that we have before us?
I mean, I've always said that they need to invest more into figuring out how to get rid of the greenhouse gases that are already in there and at the same time slow them down, but be able to get rid of them and slow them down. There has to be a way to fly something, clean up the air. We just don't invest in it. And because there's no money in it. What would be the money? The thing is, someone would say, I know the argument would be, well, if that was a thing, they would already do it. But we know that's not the case. Just like with this vaccine, usually takes 10 years. They got it under a year. It's all about funding. There's no money to really be made by scientists spending billions of dollars trying to figure out how to get rid of greenhouse gases. Because how would they make that money? Who would be paying them? You see what I'm saying? It's not like we, the citizens, would be paying this company to clean up the air. It's not a thing. It's something that has to be almost like a government-run thing where we're just paying that company to fly planes or whatever and clean up the air. I really think that they could figure out how to get rid or clean up the air as we slow down greenhouse gases. And in fact, that could be, it's a much better solution for both sides, Republican and Democrat, if they can do it. And I've heard scientists say that it's possible. I've also heard scientists say that you can essentially, with enough research, you can control the weather if you wanted to.
Well, it's a little bit of, a different angle, but I've been thinking about this. Just when we talk about clean energy, Biden's plan to create jobs, to build back better and create jobs. Part of the injustice in our country is that so many people of color live next to unclean energy sources. And when we start addressing clean energy on a nationwide scale, it will completely change the dynamic that a lot of people live under who have never had a choice to live in a healthier, cleaner, safer, more stable environment.
From what it looks like too, they're moving first on water issues, which specifically deal a lot of times with where communities of color are next to or are getting their water from, as we saw in Flint, but it's happened in a lot of other places that they're not engaging with.
Well, and I think historically, if you want to upset any population, mess with their water.
Right.
There's
First.
nothing that upsets people more than the sense that you have cut off their supply to clean water.
Water is life, dude.
Water is life. Don't waste it.
That's what's
and don't
up.
mess with it. That's what's up. When we clean up the water, when we clean up the air, when we start focusing on training people to contribute to cleaner energy and also empower people to get out of disempowered communities, and we start addressing the
Sorry,
food.
Jance, I'm going to put this in front of you. Keep going.
We start addressing the food inequity in our country and how hunger is such a huge issue, then we will start to see real progress, in our politics and in our economy and in our society and our religion. I mean, I'm serious. That's what's up. Clean air, clean water, and access to food will seriously change our country.
That's economic change. What do you want to give people a chance? What are you talking about? Are you a socialist?
Yeah, and I think that they should attack the water thing just by, they could probably run a report throughout the whole country and go, our water everywhere is not good. I mean, who wouldn't agree that how much of bottled water do we drink? We do that on purpose because have you tasted tap water? I mean, it's definitely different. So I think it's an easy sell for people to go, hey, we got to fix the water. And that's bipartisan.
This
and
is
part
what I'm
of
saying. Zach says it right here. I'm going to put this back up here. You want to beat China, he says? Beat them with green energy. Don't let the CCP.
Wait, you already screwed that up, though, because the Trump administration took the one thing as right now in this country that we in the United States make the best batteries. No one makes better batteries than us. Tesla makes the best, most, and no one's close to Tesla's batteries. And we allowed Tesla to go to China and make batteries in China. That is the biggest loss of our piece that we could have sold the entire world we can ever have. It's like losing. Imagine if when Ford came out with Ford and we said, oh, that's a really neat car. Now let's send it off to China and have them make them all the time. how much prosperity we would have lost if we didn't have the car industry in the very beginning of the United States. We just lost that. We had batteries.
You're saying we lost the battery.
We lost the battery
war.
There's no one that makes better batteries than Tesla. Period. It's not even close. There's not a second company. There's not a third company. It's Tesla. He makes the best batteries, and we allowed him to take his product, bring it to China, and show him how to make the batteries. Now, he's going to say, oh, I signed a whole bunch of contract. Baloney. You know what they're going to do. In 1 year, there's going to be a Chinese version of a Tesla with the same freaking battery. It's going to run 1 million miles without any loss. And we lost that product instead of making in the United States and selling it around the world as an everything. And those batteries are changed for everything because that's clean. That's how you do clean energy. You can put those batteries on houses. You can put those batteries on everything, generators, everything you can put those batteries on because they're not as expensive to make. And now with this 1 million mile battery, I'm sure everybody's heard about it. Basically, they figured out how to make a battery that does not die. It can last and last and last and last. And we gave that away instead of making $100,000 jobs for our future away. Another thing is I have a 4-year-old about to be a 5-year-old. And I sit every once in a while and I go, I can't think of anything where I can go, man, when he's 19, I don't even know what career to push him to. I remember when I was growing up, it was much easier for my parents to go, all right, son, we got a couple of career paths for you. You could be a doctor. You could be a lawyer. You could be this. You could be that. You could be what is there? Do I want my son to be a doctor? Sure. But doctors, have you noticed how much doctors are getting paid? Your general doctors?
Right.
Since they're low, mid. Since when when I grew up, if you were a doctor,
you were the rich guy.
You were the rich guy. Now you're middle class, depending on where you live. Now it's about specialty doctors. Well, there's only like 1% of those. It's hard enough to be a doctor. Now you have to be 1% of those. So now you have to have a real special child, which we all hope our child is, but not everybody can be a heart surgeon, right? So now what else is there left? There's not that many jobs going around that's in the future. And we need to Joe Biden needs to start saying, hey, you have children. We need to make them high earning jobs, middle class to upper class jobs that we can do that. We did that with the car industry and then poof, it was gone. And we didn't replace it. Now we brought it back, but it's still not quite there. And we had the opportunity with batteries and we missed it. We could get it back, but it is a huge miss that we gave a huge intelligence property that no one else in the world had. Everything else people have. Chips.
Well, it's almost like
chips.
It's almost like we were busy doing other things, thinking about other things that weren't important.
Yeah.
It's almost like we spent 4 or 5 years just fucking off, thinking about stupid shit like Donald Trump and his family and fighting with him. And I mean, like, there is a price to pay for dancing with lunacy.
It's almost like there weren't federal subsidies to buy electric cars or something.
Oh yeah,
right.
No, but I mean,
Colorado has some. I know Colorado has some subsidies for buying electric cars.
We do,
but federally we don't. Kansas doesn't. One thing I'd add just quickly is, as an engineer, there's always opportunity costs, and you have to build infrastructures and all these things. There's decision-making structure charts and all these things. One thing about a green vision like Obama laid out, like I think we were supposed to make airliners twice as fuel efficient by 2040 or something. What that does, you might not make it, right? But there's a lot of decisions that'll be made over the next 20 years that could progress you towards greener goals if you just day by day make those decisions. And the federal government comes in, for example, and subsidizes fuel research or whatever. So the point I think I try and put in front of a lot of people, it's not like we wait until 2039 and then we have to convert all of our planes to fuel efficient planes in 1 year. The idea would be to start looking at ways to make planes more fuel efficient, every time a new thing is developed, you encourage the aeronautic industry to move towards everything fuel efficient. And guess what? I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years you can make a plane 20% more fuel efficient, and that's a jump. That's what we need. We need those jumps. So there's just something to be said of having green as an actual goal, and your day-to-day decisions moving towards that goal. It doesn't have to be a sudden paradigm shift. Get rid of all gasoline cars, destroy coal plants, blah blah blah. We could be moving that way. As coal plants come offline, replace them with something greener, and you can sort of accidentally do some of this work just through attrition and heading in a general direction versus, whatever. I mean, I didn't think I heard Trump make any consistent statement at all about green. If anything, he wanted high flow shower heads and unicorns processing clean coal. I don't know that anyone's ever actually seen
bringing
clean
back
coal.
The old light bulbs and all that. Like,
Bring back the old light bulbs that are brighter or whatever, man. Has everyone noticed that now they have these LED light bulbs that are just as bright as anything ever was? I mean, yes, we went through some dim light bulbs for a while, but you know what? We survived.
I mean, this thing is light. And we also have proof that this works every way in the corner. Look at the cars.
Yeah, GM made that move. This was last week, I believe. I'll put this up here to go all electric by 2035 to phase out gas and diesel engines.
But even go back. When Obama came in, he set a standard for cars. And how quickly did the cars go from, like, I used to drive a car that was like 11 miles a gallon. Mm-hmm. And it was like, and then I drove a car that was like 25 miles a gallon. And it was like, oh my God, you have a car for 25 miles a gallon? And then the Obama set of standards and cars went from 11 to like 30, like that, within a couple of years. Coal, same thing. They started pushing on coal. Don't like kill me, but fracking happened. Not saying it's better. It is better than coal. It's just not the best option, but it did happen. There's always maneuvering with everything, just like this airlines. When the government puts in money and goes, hey, I know it's not cost effective for you guys, you private businesses, to do the research yourself. We're going to pay for it. They do it. This vaccine shows us that the process works. I'm going to keep on bringing this up. The reason vaccines take years and years and years and years is because there's no money. There's no money. The government is not prepaying billions of dollars for Pfizer to do the research. Pfizer is doing the research on their own, spending their own money and hoping that they can get it done and to sell it. Now we come in with the federal government. We go, take all the money you want. In fact, not only that, we're going to pre-purchase 100 million vaccines. Go ahead and start making them. That's how you get progress. You have to pay these companies to start the research on our dime. And we're okay with it. And then you look at it and then you'll see progress.
It's the American way. It's how the Transcontinental Railroad happened. Yes, it created robber barons, but it happened because the United States government said, here's the land, here's the authority to do it, now get it done. And they did it while we were in the middle of the Civil War. And it was like, get it done. And it happened.
Cancer is next. And I think you're going to see a huge, cancer was mentioned. I think you're going to see a huge uptick on cancer research.
Jeff,
because a lot of the things they did with this vaccine is going to be used for cancer research.
Well, I kind of want to flip into that. Maybe not the research side of it so much, but I want to ask Jeff, because you're a supply chain dude. And I was thinking about this. What are you learning anything? Are you imagining that there are going to be long-term benefits from this when and if we put this amazing supply chain in place? Like, we're looking at something like, D-Day being put in place right now, and it's just getting going. But I mean, in terms of your eye on this stuff, I was really curious about this weekend. I was thinking about you, and I was like, man, I wonder what the ramifications of this kind of a supply chain could become for this country.
We have a luxury in the United States is when it comes to supply chain, especially in the scenario here of talking about relatively dense things like vaccine chests. We have a very good interstate highway system. We have a very good air freight system in FedEx and UPS Air. I remember one day I was at Musician's Friend, and There was a musician we supported was in Germany or something, and somehow his tuba case got thrown away or something. And he needed a tuba case before his flight in 2 days or whatever. And my guy's freaking out. And I'm like, what's your problem? And he's like, how are we going to get a tuba case to Germany in 2 days? I said, call our FedEx rep. It's just a matter of money. You can get a tuba case to Germany in 2 days. No problem. We could have it there in 24 hours if we want to. And the point being, logistically moving the actual stuff won't really be the problem. The problem, of course, is in this case, how do you eat an elephant a bite at a time? The challenge here is getting 10 million people around the elephant. So it's denucleating the sites and getting sites close to rural Americans. And it's all the physical stuff that I think is going to be the really challenging part. And obviously deploying local people so you don't have to transport and house people, using public venues like stadiums, parking lots. I saw tonight on TV, I was actually surprised. They show people inside what looked like a hockey or basketball arena in their cars. I thought that was very unusual. When I heard people talk about arenas, I didn't think of people driving through arenas, but I guess that's one of the ways they're talking about doing it. I imagine people lining up on concourses. I had no idea that they were going to drive people through stadiums. But anyway, that's going to be the interesting part, is the model of lining up the people and feeding them through. And then I was thinking too, like a small thing, like you're observed for 15 minutes after your shot. So, do you grid them all up in a parking lot and have like a person with a flag just walking down the aisle so that they're releasing people exactly 15 minutes after they arrived? And there's a lot of the logistics of the actual shot locations is really interesting. And no one's asked me for my help, although I never really did formally anything quite to that level. But, obviously you just do some math. You need a certain number of people equals a certain number of shots, in an hour. And you need to have that many, you take how many shots one person can do in an hour. So now you know how many people you need to have giving shots. And you got to keep people coming and going from those shot stations as quickly as possible so that they can hit their rate.
Well,
so
we haven't really had that point yet.
Engineering
we haven't really had that point yet where they're talking about where they aren't going to have enough people to do the shots. And so right now we haven't had a glut of, a bunch of vaccines sitting there waiting to be put in arms, but that's coming.
Yeah. And I think it'll change quite a bit when Johnson & Johnson is going to come out. I think we're about 2 weeks away from seeing a surge of vaccinations like you've never seen before. I think we're going to go from like 30 or 40 million to 100 million in a month, or even quicker. It's going to be like that because Johnson & Johnson is probably going to ask for the emergency either tomorrow, sometime this week. It's going to get approved, and I haven't gotten the number, but they already probably have between 30 to 50 million vaccines ready to ship. Wow. They're one shots. They don't need refrigeration. They're bam, 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 bam. They can knock them out super quickly. The other thing that we have that's an advantage over other countries is we do have private industry like the Krogers. I have a friend, a pharmacist that works at Kroger. We have these places, the Walgreens, all of these places. And I'm hoping what the Biden administration is going to do is they're going to go back to the private industry and go, you guys already work 24/7. Let's start pumping it out 24/7. There's no need to stop. Right. Let's go. We got the vaccine, work 24/7, pump it out. But one quick thing, what Marty was kind of hitting on is on this money that we spent on the vaccine, how it might help the future. One key company that I think we're going to see in the future is Moderna. Moderna was an itty bitty company. The U.S. government just funneled billions and billions of dollars into itty bitty company. And this itty bitty company created, essentially, they were the first ones to create a mRNA vaccine. Now, the Pfizer one got approved faster, but Moderna came out with it faster. And the reason that Moderna did it is because Moderna had the original vaccine on SARS, which was also a COVID type. Moderna is backed by Bill Gates. He likes the mRNA, and we've pumped a ton of money and equipment that they have bought. And I think they're going to be a huge player in the United States on future technology because mRNA has been used for cancer research and everything like that, but the money wasn't there. Now they already have the equipment. And Joe Biden has made a promise. I'm assuming, I don't think it's going to come anytime in the next couple of months, but I'm assuming you're going to hear a big push for cancer research because he's made a promise on cancer research. And I think we're going to see a huge jump in cancer treatment like we've never seen before.
Well, the legitimacy of the mRNA transfer stuff. I mean, this is its trial, and when this is over, it's going to be like, all right, what else can we affix to this? This thing that we've already built, because essentially they describe it as building a prefab bathroom, and you get to pick which fixtures you want. Is what basically the bathroom stays the same, but you want silver fixtures or gold fixtures, and one is for this and one is for that. And that's just added these things for the COVID to what they already had, and here we go. So it's amazing.
It is. And they can also go from a strain into a vial in under 6 months. And the good news is, because if they need to make a booster, they can actually go from they're already making booster shots now, and they don't have to wait that long for the testing period, because it's the same. Everything that they've already tested is the same. They just changed a little bit of the code. They added in the code. So the testing, I forgot the name. I was just listening to Dr. Fauci, but it's like a bridge. They do a bridge between the two, so they can go. They can get approved much quicker. But essentially, for these viruses, I hope that when we're out of this, we're just going to keep on funding these companies, so they're always ahead of time. That way, if we ever have this in the future, we can always go from strain to vials within 6-7 months, and then just always be ahead of time. And that's something we've never done. We've never looked at it that seriously. Of course, we also have to work with China, because there is an issue, because, and this is,
the variants from other countries are very worrying. Zach, you're absolutely right. But that's the power of this mRNA stuff, is that we all may have another booster in 6-7 months that has some other stuff on it. And that may just be the way this goes for a while, until this thing plays out and can't get enough, connection in our population.
And from my understanding, yes, the South Africa variant is a problem. But the good news with the South African variant is, if you have the vaccine shot from the ones that they've tested, like even the Johnson & Johnson, so the efficacy goes down way below, like it goes into the 50%. But the good news is, if you get it, the percentage of severe sickness is down to 1 or 2%. So essentially, if we can get COVID and all these variants down to a flu, like an actual flu, and the same percentages as a flu, then we're good to go. I mean, like I said, I've said this before, we don't change our lifestyle during flu season. Right. People get sick, some people do die, but that's kind of, we know what to expect. So I think that you're going to see this thing, basically, people with with this shot, they're not going to hit the severity like they did before.
I love it.
It's important to point out that the flu shot is, even when you get the wrong strains, it's 50% effective against the other lines of flu. So, we have some experience with similar situations where, even if it's not ideally aimed at the strain you have, the strain you might get infected with, you're still going to have some effectiveness. The other challenge I did hear echoed on CNN today, I'm sure other news sources are saying it too, is these other places have these variances, and I don't know if anyone on this panel knows this answer, but is anyone in the U.S. checking DNA of COVID patients? In other words, maybe these other countries are finding these strains because they're doing the proper amount of testing. There's a decent chance there's already American strains we don't know about, because when you allow a virus to infect 24 million people, you have to keep in mind that this thing replicates. I mean, I'm not a biologist, but let's just say 40 times while it's in each infected person. It 40 generations per infected person, and you infect somebody else somewhere in those generations. So, you take 24 million times 40, and all these things are happening independently. Things like, if you've ever known anybody who brews beer, you get rogue yeast. When you use yeast over and over, you get these yeasts that come off your skin or out of the air, and they're very ardent and they create bitter flavors and things like that. That's the same kind of thing that's going to happen when you when you infect all these people, when you let it run rampant across the population like it basically has, things like variations are definitely going to happen. The good news is with viruses from a universal standpoint, viruses that do best are the ones that become less lethal. It's in the virus' best interest not to kill its host. So hopefully many variances maybe that we're not even hearing about or don't know about yet are less virulent. It's the more virulent ones that we're talking about.
All right, guys, we've passed the halfway point, and I want to switch gears. I've got something I want to walk through. If you guys want to take a break or whatever, mute your mics if you're bouncing out. I'm going to walk through a letter and switching to Trump, switching to the trial. I'm going to put it up and make everybody small. So do what you guys want to do. Here we go. Does anybody, I don't know if folks have seen this or not, but this is from Christopher Miller, that was acting Defense Department head of the Defense Department. And this letter is unbelievable. And so I'm going to read it and work through this with you, because what this is Chris Miller sent a letter to the National Guard, to the leaders in the Pentagon, the National Guard, about this. And this was sent on the 4th of January. And it is a letter that essentially says that all of these various things that he's going to list have to have his personal approval. These are things that any police force or any National Guard who was trying to keep control would have already been doing. But in this case, he said that you've got to go through me in order to do it. And so I'm going to walk through some of these things and just bounce through it, because you need to know about this. I think this is going to be the core of basically it's the table of contents of the coup d'etat. And so it's this memorandum responds to your January 4th, 2021 memorandum regarding the District of Columbia request for DC National Guard. They knew ahead of time they were going to need help, support, and presence of planned demonstrations from the 5th and 6th coming up. You are authorized to approve. This is dated January 4th, so they knew this was coming in ahead of time. You are authorized to approve the requested support, subject to my guidance below and subject to consultation with the Attorney General as required by executive order. Without my subsequent personal authorization, this is Miller, this is Chris Miller, without my personal authorization, you are not allowed or authorized to do the following. This is to the National Guard. You are not allowed to be issued weapons, ammunitions, bayonets, batons, or ballistic protection equipment such as helmets and body armor. So now when we're talking about the police and the cops that were there, they were unable to have anything of protection. Without his personal authorization, subsequent personal authorization, which means you had to ask again, to interact physically with protesters except when necessary in self-defense or defense of others, consistent with the DC National Guard rules for the use of force. So in other words, when we're seeing the guys walk up and put their arms around them and maybe take a picture with them, we have to ask a new question. And that is, were they told to stand there like shills and not even be able to do anything about it? Maybe they were participating, but maybe they were literally gelded as National Guards people or as Capitol Police and were unable to do anything. Just adding a little twist to the absolute lunacy of this. Okay, next. You're not able to employ any riot control agents. Did you wonder why you didn't see any tear gas? Did you wonder why you didn't see any rubber bullets as they stormed up the steps, beat the shit out of cops, and went sideways? Well, it's because Chris Miller hadn't given the authority personally, even though these would have been standard protocols. So Chris Miller, of course, standing in the way of this. He was appointed by Trump. Was it less than a month before this went down? Maybe just over? I can't remember. Can't share. Also, without his personal, you can't share any equipment with the law enforcement agencies. So if you're standing there and you could help, you can't. Can't use any intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance assets to conduct the ISR incident awareness or assessment activities, which means that you can't jump on your cell phone and say, hey, I'm in the south side of the Capitol. What's happening in the north? Those sound like important words. They just mean you can't talk to each other. and you can't know what the hell's going on. Likewise, underneath, you can't employ any helicopters or any other air assets. So you can't get up above it and see what the hell's going on. Continue on. You can't search, siege, arrest, or other similar direct law enforcement activity as they could have done and did when they beat the shit out of people for Trump and his Bible, waving his Bible. All of these things were employed on that day. And then to seek any support from any non-DC National Guard units, which means you can't call Virginia, you can't call Maryland, because do you know why? They didn't get this memo. Because do you know why? They have a governor. This, my friends, is the playbook on the 4th that was laid out, and you may only, I love this last one, you may only reply the DC National Guard Quick Reaction Force only as a last resort in response from a request from the appropriate civil authority. If it is employed, the DC National Guard personnel will be clearly marked and or distinguished from civilian law enforcement personnel. So that at the very end, when all those different personnel came in with their different colors and different places, that was also part of this quick reaction force. So we got to see that in place too. So this is a play-by-play 2 days before. I'm not a lawyer, but dude, I rest my case.
By the way, this is the same Christopher Miller that is like a super Russian. He's like pro-Russia. He has made statements recently that he respects Russia and thinks that they do everything super professionally. So that's interesting for a defense guy.
He was appointed he started serving November 9th, so less than a month before.
I don't even know. I just had to bring that up. Like, I don't know what else to talk about other than that. Mean, what the fuck, dude?
If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck, and it sounds like a duck, it's probably a duck. I mean, when you watch the tape, you see the inaction of the security. I mean, they're holding a fence, but they are not equipped with body armor. They aren't ready to roll. The protesters get all the way up the steps to the door before there's even a real response. Obviously, something was going on, because we know, in contrast to the Black Lives Matter protesters, they had the no-climb fence up before protests were even there. Even after the protesters were gone. I mean, I don't mean to yell, but even after the protesters were gone, that no-climb fence remained around the White House for like weeks, And here these guys are. Everybody knows what's going down. Trump has called them to come. We see them head to the Capitol, and it's a huge question mark as to why there was not a police force to protect our sacred ground of the U.S. Capitol. And now we know why. And it's what I said before. We're going to find out that they were told not to defend the Capitol. We're going to find out that there were big names attached to preventing the proper defense of the Capitol and the lawmakers who were hiding inside.
Yeah. And all that said, this is a, I mean, we're all talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene this weekend. And I feel like this is somebody moving the strike zone off of where I'm supposed to be looking, because this friggin' memo right here is the strike zone that we should all be just drinking from and understanding and waiting to be heard from again, because Marjorie Taylor Greene will be rolled up like a 2-bit nothing when this water comes rolling out. When the levee breaks, man, it's going to be bad. And people like her will be forgotten quickly, because she's white noise right now. She's just loud, stupid, and in the way. And she's not the point. The point is that a much deeper problem happened here. And we have documentation. And my God, how deep does it go?
Yeah.
And do we have the courage to go there?
And not only how deep does it go, but how committed are we to holding former President Trump accountable? How committed are we to holding protesters accountable? And how committed are we to holding seditious lawmakers accountable who voted against Biden, against the election and supported this insurrection? How far are we going to go to hold people accountable? Because like I said before, the argument against holding people accountable is that it will cause division and it will cause conflict. And what I'm saying is, until there is accountability, there will be no resolution to the conflict that currently exists.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And Birdman, I appreciate your comments. Loud, stupid, and in the way was my nickname in high school. That's just great. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I mean, and ironically, QAnon and these MAGAs, talk about all these crazy conspiracy theories, and then it seems they were all part of an actual conspiracy. So they've yet again become exactly what they claim they're against, and it would be funny if it wasn't so tragic and destructive.
Well, and I do want to go, now that you brought up QAnon again, I do want to touch back on what Marty was talking about, how people were so caught up in QAnon and then so quick to abandon it. I think there's a direct correlation between the rise in popularity of QAnon and the rise in social consciousness about race and racism and wanting to fix racism, because you have the protesters and Black Lives Matter movement rising up and saying racism is a real problem and the police are a perfect example of the problem that we deal with. And at the same time, you have people racing to QAnon. And I think it's a lot easier to embrace QAnon when you're running from something like admitting that you're white, you live in a racist country, and that you therefore are racist too. Because if you go against racism, it's a lot easier to go against racism if you're like, well, the people accusing me of being racist, rape children and drink blood. So I don't really feel like they have a valid argument against my personal beliefs.
Yep. Well, and those are the intramural games that we've been playing. But now we're looking at, when you go to a university and you stand there and there's all the interplay between the people and the teachers and whatever, and then you stand there and you look at the buildings with the big arches or the big architecture, and you're like, whoa, this is a much bigger than my experience, right? And that's what we're gonna see in the levers of the impeachment trial, is watching the large pillars of government, which we didn't get to see last January. So we have to remind ourselves that we didn't watch an impeachment that worked the way it's supposed to. We watched a blockade against truth, and that's not going to happen this time. There's going to be evidence. There's going to be whatever is needed to be. It may not have to be that long, but there's going to be a clear direction about what happened. And this kind of documentation is going to include a lot of people. There's also documentation and pictures of a meeting that happened on the 5th in Trump Tower with all the major players that Ali Alexander called into, with all the entire members of the family except for potentially Trump, and he might have been on the phone. I mean, they're going to paint a picture of conspiracy that is going to be, I believe, wrapped so tight we're not going to know what to do with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the biggest key is the pipe bomb guy. I think is a huge key because when you start bringing in explosives, then you really can. That's terrorism. And it's more than you running into and doing sedition. Terrorism requires certain things. If they can find this guy, I think that will be a huge tell on which organization he's part of, because he's obviously part of an organization, because we find out that the bombs were placed day before the insurrection, which means he knew what was coming. And most likely you don't have a random person doing pipe bombs and placing them strategically on both sides the night before. So I think I don't know if they'll find them before that, but I think he's going to be a huge key to this whole thing, to wrap it around and go, here's an organization, boom. Because we already have a couple of organizations. You got the Proud Boys, you got the Oath Keepers. Those are big organizations with a military style of organization, and you already have people there that they're the federal government, the FBI already has them. They probably have all the questioning, and they're probably spilling their guts pretty quickly. If you can find this guy and figure out which organization he was part of, then you can, if he was part of this organization, he brings bombs, then you wrap a bow on it as a terrorist organ. You can then say this is a terrorist organization.
So, and don't you think that we make a mistake in language? And I know I've been doing it too, and I'm not catching anyone in this. I'm just thinking about this. Don't we make a mistake in language when we're thinking that this is in the past tense? Like when we're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Kevin McCarthy and other terrorist sympathizers, there hasn't been any people brought to justice. They might have been arrested, but they haven't been brought to complete justice yet. And so I think we need to somehow continue the language in the present tense or even in the future tense, which forces these people into their rat holes if you're gonna keep that hot. But it also allows us to plan differently and be like, well, I expect they're going to do this again because they're an unfettered disease that has to be dealt with.
Yeah, I think at some point you have several things coming together. But when you talk about Taylor Greene, you're talking about conspiracy theory. And we do have this chart Luke shared with us.
Yep.
And we don't have to go through it step by step, but you'll see here at the bottom it's hard to read even on my screen. I can make it a little
Jeff,
I can make it a little bigger, but it really the resolution isn't awesome even when you get in tight. So what you have here is the things that actually happen. So for example, in here there's Tuskegee and NSA mass surveillance. Big Tobacco lied about cancer. Okay, so those are real things that happen. So then there's this line that says speculation line. And so that's where you've left reality and you've started to speculate. So UFOs, Roswell, Epstein didn't kill himself, the Denver airport, which if you don't know is supposedly a fallout shelter for the New World Order or something, JFK assassination, etc. Area 51, speculating that I would assume we know it's there, but speculating that there's aliens there or whatever. So then unequivocally false, but mostly harmless lies. So crop circles, Elvis lives, alien abduction, Loch Ness monster. So obviously those things are untrue or at least unprovable, but not dangerous. I mean, no one says the Loch Ness monster is funding Democratic candidates or something. There's no fall guy in.
Not yet.
So then we go into science.
Loch Ness monster is not what's his name?
Right. It's not
the financer guy. I can't remember his name now.
It's not Rush Limbaugh in disguise. No. So then we go into the science denial. So here you have global warming's a hoax, the anti-vaxxers, chemtrails, COVID-19 made in the lab, and this has the label dangerous to yourself and others. So for some reason, as Finland doesn't exist, I didn't know that was a science denier point. I think that's hilarious. Jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams. Of course, it's part of the 9/11 deniers. Right. So these are starting to become dangerous, obviously, because you're anti-vax, for example. So you're causing a problem where people aren't properly vaccinated, and that hurts people.
You don't wear a mask because of 5G.
Right. You don't wear a mask because of 5G. And then you get up into the big boys, which is the world is ruled by supreme shadow elites. Sorry. Once you believe these, you're usually will believe most. So basically, once you start to believe some of these, you're going to believe a lot of them. And that includes Holocaust denial, George Soros, obviously exists, but being the source of all evil, moon landing fake, flat earthers, QAnon is over here to the left. I've had to slide side to side so you guys can read a little bit. And so I think what's important, especially with these two top boxes, it's one thing to sit around and have a conspiracy theory or a mythos that Area 51 holds aliens. It's not provable. It's kind of humorous, but okay. But when you start to cross into these lines, you start to get into things that are dangerous and truthfully, right, lies. So when someone says global warming is a hoax, they're lying. When they quote QAnon, they're lying. The existence of the Illuminati, that's a lie. Sandy Hook, fake. See, this is one of the things we've heard from this Green Lady is that Sandy Hook was fake. And these start to become very, very dangerous because you're now creating a concept that a mass shooting carried out by a deranged man that killed 6 teachers and 20 students when he carried over 100 rounds into a grade school, that didn't happen. That was fake because people are so anti-gun that they would create a movie that they then play on the world as if it's a news story. I mean, you've really gone to a point where you're now selling a lie that is extremely dangerous because you're now saying that several things you're saying. Those people didn't actually die, which is hurtful to all the people that actually did die or know people that died. That there are people that can politically create reality and force it upon you, create their own reality and force it upon you to then ingest and believe, so that other things you see could be totally fake and ingestible, and on and on and on. I mean, that lie has danger at multiple levels, outright just denial of reality. And so it's time, I guess we should have known when they said this Green Lady was a QAnon supporter. I guess Bobart too, right? They were both, I think, identified as QAnon supporters. Yep. I think probably most of us kind of giggled, because we just thought it was ridiculous that QAnon person would get elected. Then we slowly find exactly what you would find with the QAnon supporter. She does believe these crazy things. And
if you check off on that box, we already know that she checks off 6 of them that we already have public knowledge of. Obviously, right. Deep State, George Soros, Sandy Hook. I'm assuming Pizzagate, although we don't have that. They're also missing 9/11 on this red.
Well, they had jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams.
Oh, there you go.
I think that's part of the 9/11.
So she literally just reads this top one and just runs with it.
Right. I mean, how often do we hear George Soros? Anytime BLM does anything.
There's a difference here as you go up. Bear with me for a second. There's a difference in daily decisions that you would be willing to make as you go up. And maybe we can go down a little further, but Elvis Lives, crop circles, alien abductions, some of those things, you wouldn't rearrange your life. But let's go back up real quick.
You own some weird books. You've got a funny painting on the wall.
Books, but when you're over here with anti-vaxxers or soy boys, you eat differently. With 5G, you act differently. You go different places. With chemtrails, you worry about those things happening. You look into the sky and you see them, and it causes anxiety for these people who I know I've met before who would say to me, there's a lot of people who don't like you and me. So, the chemtrails are what they use.
At 5G, we just had proof of 5G. The guy just blew up a freaking building because of 5G.
COVID-19 made in a lab. So that's where decisions are starting to be made, right? And then we bounce up into this orange and red element, and it's major decisions are being made now.
Yeah.
Once you go into QAnon, you're not living a lifestyle like I am. You're thinking of things. You're going to different places.
Pizzagate was on there.
Is another one, man.
It's interesting too. It says the anti-Semitic point of no return. That's kind of interesting that a lot of these do seem to kind of be anti-Semitic, don't they?
And I've been doing a little bit of research. They're really old anti-Semitic stuff. Some of it's older than Hitler even knew about. There's some old shit in anti-Semitism that they've tried over the years. And this Elders of Zion stuff, the reptilian overlord stuff, it is old. Mm-hmm. These are old lies, man.
I'm so happy I don't even know what some of these are. I don't even know what the Wayfair.
Oh, I know what the Wayfair. You don't want to know.
Okay, don't tell me. I don't want to give. We've already given too much air to the same.
Well, okay, so I've told you about this before.
Message me later.
In this intimate moment after church, and I've got a council member who's a person who's on my church council. He's a leader in the church, and I had preached a sermon. It was right after Sandy Hook, maybe a couple of months afterwards, and it took a little while for that anti-Sandy Hook denial thing to kick off. But he comes up in this, and it's an intimate moment with a pastor. They're shaking my hand, and he leans into my ear. I'm gonna get rid of this. He leans into my ear, intimate moment, and he just goes, "Pastor, you know that Sandy Hook never happened."
Oh.
And I'm shaking everybody's hand. I'm doing my thing, and it it hits you in the soul.
Yeah, so gross.
It's gaslighting is what it does, and it's what pimps do to keep women under their foot. It's literally gaslighting, and so all of these little things are like my psychobabble word would be to call that a mind fuck, where
Yeah.
you are just simply you're thrown off your game, and it's a power move, and it sticks, and it doesn't leave. And this is how they control. This is what Donald Trump has done. This
Yeah.
even at the end, and I thought about this the other day. I was like, at the end, we're still talking about this sociopath. At the end, he's had to do something to make us still be talking about him,
Right.
which is what sociopaths do.
And
It's all
unfortunately, a lot of these things like Sandy Hook, the other thing that it does is it's the person that told you is now stained by saying that. It's very then hard. He gets pushed into a corner, which then works for the QAnon people because they get pushed away and put in the corner of, you guys are nutty, but we can't, I can't, it would be my worst nightmare if a person that I know told me, hey, Sandy Hook didn't exist. That's worst case because I don't know how to deal with you as a person.
Now as you drive home I drove home that night, I have to recategorize my relationship with him.
Exactly, because
I have to eat shit every time he wants me to.
Right.
So he gets either pushed into a corner where he gets told more and more of these things, and because he's not part of the other corner, because I don't want to be associated with a guy that thinks Sandy Hook is fake. He learns more and more, and it's a problem. It's also very hard to pull those people out and even start a conversation. I've been around many people that are pretty much anti-vaxxers, and they say ridiculous, outlandish stuff about vaccines, microchips, all kinds of stuff. And you dive in, and it's very hard because it's so ridiculous not to go, you're being ridiculous.
Right.
This whole thing is, and if you go at it like that, it's over. You can't.
You then have severed the relationship.
Exactly. So it's a loss. These conspiracy theories are complete losses, and they're very hurtful in every single way. The moon landing is a little bit, but all the other ones are they're completely hurtful. 9/11, people died. Sandy Hook, there's also Parkland. I don't think was on it. Parkland, especially. All of these are they're nasty, and it tells you, what kind of human being can you really be if you think that kids dying, it's not a real thing. People grieving, and you're going to take that away. Why does it even matter to you that much to pass on this conspiracy theory? What does it help you any?
And what's going on in your mind? What's going on in your mind that it's easier to believe the faking of it than the concept of extremely available weapons getting into the hand of a singular human and them using it to do something evil, which is such a, again, trying to use Occam's razor a little bit. That is extremely possible, right? There's 360 million people in this country, and there's probably 400,000 AR-15s. I don't know.
Right.
So for those two things to come into the same orbit, and someone be upset, if I recall, he was mad at his mom, which happens. Obviously not homicidally mad at your mom, but he was on antidepressants or something. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. The concept that someone could be so upset that they take their gun and they go shoot up a school, that's fake. What's happened is it's this movie produced by anti-gun. It's just, you have to, and again, the second subtext that all these have to have is everything you think is real is not. And so now you're operating in a parallel universe where everything we see is fictitious. I have the truth. I'm behind the screen. I know what's really happening. Well, once you make that jump, again, like it says, once you believe one of these, you'll probably believe the rest. Because everything you know and see in Wikipedia and Snopes and mainstream media, they're all lies. It's all this styrofoam screen that everyone's behind is on the other side of. And we're on this side, and we have real reality, and we share it on YouTube and blogs and vlogs and Discord.
I want to show this. The monument drops a good question. Sorry, guys. I'm going to put it over your face quickly.
That's fine.
Fundamentally, what is it that makes one subscribe to these ideologies and make it truth? I think that speaks to what you were just saying, Jeff, is that what ends up making it truth is the affirmation with a community that I find some sort of a connection with. It's very much gang kind of behavior.
And
I mean, to use the moon landing,
Community that supports my predisposed bias.
I mean, to use the moon landing, they take something that seems unusual, like the flag waving, and they say, well, a flag can't wave if you don't have any air. So clearly it was fake, even though the physics work fine. Fabric will wave. When you take a piece of fabric in space and do this, it will wave because it's acting like a chain would in our atmosphere. It has mass. It's going to oscillate. So they also take some morsel that's either hard to understand or looks a little fake and grab onto it. And then the other thing I know QAnon does is, and then they just flood you with it. It's not just the flag, it's the this, the this, the this, the this. Here's the 16 things that are questionable about the moon landing. And when you reach into each one, none of them carry. None of them carry. You know how many times I argue with my QAnon friend? You get 2 sentences in, he's like, well, what about this? They don't each have to carry. They just flood you with 16 of them. And you're like, well, that's interesting. There's 16 flaws with the moon landing. Maybe we didn't land on the moon. Well, we absolutely landed on the moon. The people that were there have told you that. There's pictures of it. You can see objects we've left on the moon. There are observable objects on the moon. We were there, How could you not think we were there? But it just, you just can't convince these people. And one of the reasons I think it's a mystery, my 8-year-old says it's a mystery. It's not a mystery. We landed on the moon. We landed on the moon. It's history. It is history. She was right. She said history.
History. Thank God.
It is history. The thing I think people desire is I think people, especially with flat earth, what I think really happens is people desire mysticism. We have all this science, it's not like back in the day of, a horsehair falls in a trough and it turns into a snake because I see snakes around horse troughs or whatever, these
Right.
transmutation historical beliefs that modern humans had. Even all that stuff's been pretty well disproven. We pretty well know everything. And so I think there's just a lot of hunger out there for people to just say, well, what if that's not right? You say you're so smart, we landed on the moon. Well, what if we didn't land on the moon? What if it's a conspiracy? Well, I
there's
don't
an anti-authoritarianism
there is
bent to it that we all have. That's part of being a skeptic, a Gen Xer, part of growing up in pop culture and questioning it and whatever. But it like an ingrown nail or something. It gets worse as it continues because the behavior it burns in on itself.
Yes. And it's self-feeding. It as you start to believe that they could lie about the moon landing, lie to all of us. They've lied to all of us about the moon landing. Well, then obviously the natural, if you have a moderate intelligence, your next question would be, what else did they lie about?
Yeah, it's a crack in the shield of everything. And basically, the other problem with conspiracy theories is the person that's getting the conspiracy, once you crack them, they want more, and they don't see the harm in them because they'll go with, I'm just asking questions. I'm just asking questions. But then here's the problem. Once they go, I'm just asking questions, they get told the answers. But the answers are being told by the people telling them the conspiracy theories that help them control these people. So I'm asking questions about Parkland. There's a video, blah, 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 blah. What if it's, they get told, they get fed this thing. Well, the reason that it's fake is because of guns. This whole thing was created to take away your guns. So now they go, so it's not just a conspiracy theory. There's a reasoning behind it.
There's another thing. There's another thing that goes along with that too, and it's a character development sketch. Like, it took how many of these shootings in schools or wherever for them to come up with this? What's the story that they call the play actors or
crisis actors?
The crisis actor. That
actors,
became a new character in their world. They're like, that didn't happen right away. And then pretty soon, Alex Jones starts talking more about, there's the same crisis actors, and he'll do his stupid thing. And then pretty soon, they start looking for characters, right? So even in this last QAnon, they're looking for pedophiles and, lizard people and shapeshift, all the little whatever boogeymen that they've been built. They're looking for those characters. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a great example of someone whose brain immediately goes there. You can watch her do it live when she's being interviewed.
It also makes someone like Taylor Greene, who's obviously not the sharpest knife in the box, it makes her somewhat of an expert Now she's an expert in completely wrong information,
Something.
but she can
Right.
feed a circle and feed a Facebook group and be a central figure now in this table of bullshit.
Mhm.
Truthfully,
Right.
again, creating the cabal that she fears, literally creating a cabal of people that believe in her same lies and bullshit. You know, yeah. So, and you know what? Space is complex. The orbiting of the Earth is complex. Flat Earth is a lot simpler, man. It's all just under a big bowl, and it's it's a lot simpler. So
Right.
I think there's another thing there too, where people that are intellectually challenged may drift towards some of these because it's like it's just a lot. It's a lot simpler. I also think the crisis actor concept, it helps you not have to live with the dichotomy and the pain of what actually happened. That you own an you own an AR-15 or you're pro AR-15, and that someone like you used it to murder a bunch of people. That's painful. That's really painful to stop and think about. Wow, my gun could be used to murder 20 kindergartners. So your brain's going to seek out a less painful answer, as we all know. I mean, that's part of that's the other thing that happens is, guns really aren't that dangerous because, those shootings that they say happened, they didn't even happen. That was all fake. Well, now suddenly I don't have my heart just got lighter in 5 seconds. I don't have to feel bad about owning a weapon of mass destruction. I can just be happy about having my gun for when the government comes for me and not worry about a whole class of kindergartners that were killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing that drives them towards that. And then I think they, I don't think even they realize how insidious what they're doing is. I mean, Pizzagate, right? People have shown up and threatened people's lives at this pizza place. It's just some freaking pizza place. It doesn't even have a basement. They claim kids are being sold in the basement. It doesn't even have a basement. It just builds this hysteria, and unfortunately, it's allowed.
And heroism.
When Trump tells these people the election was fake, they're just like, of course it was.
Well, okay, so then let's do this too, because there's something that happens in systems where there's transformative and there's adaptive, and then there's just the kind of change where we all talk about the same bullshit and nothing ever changes. And adaptation, technical change, and adaptive change. Technical change, one of the markers of it is, oh my God, I've got a new idea, and everybody loves the guy who has the new idea, and everybody feels good about having the new idea, and everybody leaves the meeting happy, and nothing fucking changes, right? Yeah. Everybody feels like a hero. Look at this thing that Zach puts up here. He says, well, Green gets to be the only one willing to stand up for the truth. That heroism piece, that personal heroic nature of being the one who gets to bring the new research back to the tribe, or gets to stand up and be Martin Luther, here I stand, I won't be moved, based on some truth that she only knows,
right,
and can't be shown again.
Right.
What about this heroes? That's not the right word. It's not heroism. It's not the right word. It's
like a hero complex. They think they're saving
self-aggrandizement.
Well, and it gets really interesting. I mean, I'll just take a snippet of two things that Green said that are not congruous. She said Muslims should stay in Muslim countries and mess them up over there and not come over here because we don't want Sharia law and all this other stuff. Now, those that don't know, Sharia law is conservative Muslim law, usually adopted by Muslim states. And then of course, you have a problem because you got religion and government together, which is always bad. She doesn't want that, but she went looking for members of the squad to tell them that they cannot swear an oath to our government on a Quran. It has to be the Bible, which if you don't see your own incongruity of enforcing a Christian law that it doesn't exist on someone because you feel like they want to use Muslim law. I mean, it's, how do those two things occupy the same brain? And the answer is she's never thought about it, or she just knows she's right. She's not looking at it from a logical standpoint. Her faith or righteousness has outweighed all that part of her brain, and she's just straight up driving forward with these concepts. And if I could, when people leave this into science now, when people talk about 5G anti-vaxxers, I think historically our natural response is to be somewhat tolerant and just going to be like, look, man, I mean, as long as you're not near me and doing this and that. And what I think we all need to start doing, especially with someone like Taylor Greene, you're wrong. When she says, when someone says vaccines hurt people, you're wrong. They're putting microchips in the vaccines. They are not. You are lying. You're hurting people with your lies. We need to start seeing these conspiracy theories not in the same realm as Elvis lives, because that's not a painful conspiracy. If you want to believe Elvis lives, go for it. But when someone crosses into that 5G causes cancer, it's time to start saying, no, it doesn't. You know, I had a friend post the 5G map with the COVID map. I don't know if anybody ever saw that. It only lasted for about a week because COVID outgrew the 5G areas, because, of course, 5G is in the highest populated areas. So what you have there is a correlation, not a causation, because now it's in North Dakota where they probably don't even have 5G. Long story short, I stepped in and said, that's just a population map. What you have is COVID where the population is, which is where the 5G is. And I even looked up the information because it had been a week or two, and I'm like, what about the huge cluster, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's not even on your 5G map, you know. And, well, of course, that disappeared quickly. But that's part of what we all have to do is tell these people, I think you're wrong. That doesn't make any sense. Or anti-vax is dangerous. If you're going to be an anti-vaxxer, similar to how we're saying insurrectionist, someone says QAnon, you need to tell them, you know, you might want to seek help. I think you've really ingested some terrible information.
Interestingly enough, a lot of these conspiracy theories, if you look at them, a lot of them are most likely started by outside this country to hurt this country.
Right.
For example, the 5G conspiracy theory started coincidentally very close to when we told China we were not going to use their 5G. And we were going to use our 5G. And then all of a sudden, 5G gets in the internet, comes out that it's bad. I mean, I don't want to put one together, but it sounds like that. Anti-vaxxers, all of a sudden that's getting pushed on us. I mean, there are plenty of countries that would like us to continue struggling through COVID, and anti-masks, anti-vaxxing certainly does help us struggle through COVID. And if they get to push that into the internet, it certainly makes us struggle in those things. A lot of those things on that map can be started in another country. The moon landing. If you take away the moon landing, that takes away certainly how great America is.
I mean, I'm sure Russians said the moon landing was fake when it happened, you know? Of course they did.
A lot of these things that she's promoting it's anti-American to promote them because they're probably getting started by people that want us to do bad.
Well, I think that there has been too much gentility and leeway in these conversations. And that's kind of what I mean by whether it's past, present, or future tense, however the language works, there needs to be an aggressive expectation of saying the truth.
Our friend Cheney here is in trouble simply for agreeing with the Democratic half of her body, half of the House of Representatives. How is that? How is it unethical for a Republican to agree with the Democrats? I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, that's unethical for a Republican to agree with Democrats? Where have we gone as a country that's even? Well, that's literally the only thing she's done is she agreed with the Democrats.
If we're in that place as Democrats, then we can't go forward into this trial without getting rid of all of these jackwits who believe this shit in the Congress. Like, if that's the case, and that's what I'm worried that we haven't had the courage to do, is to be like, and Zach, I saw your comment, and you're right. It's not illegal for them to vote against the electors. You're correct that they could do that. But the fact is they did it after the insurrection happened that day, and they did it specifically to side with this part of their party that is just intolerant of our democracy. Mm-hmm. So you can't. You're right, and I know that you're not on their side, Zach. But I'm just going to speak to that and say that argument doesn't hold any fucking water with me anymore.
Well, and my poop list is people that did those things. They endorsed the objections. They signed the amicus brief and endorsed the objections. In the case of my good friend Roger Marshall, we can't ever forget him. But that's bad. I mean, I don't like that. But that was legal, and that. I'm talking about people wanting to go to Liz Cheney's state capitol, stand on the steps, and call her out because she agreed with the other half of the legislature. I mean, like, what world are we living in that's such a horrible thing to do? And then, we're talking about Bobart and Green. You know, we're talking about people that believe these conspiracy theories. That's very, very dangerous. That's far beyond a political gesture of objecting to the Electoral College. That was poopy. They're on my poop list. But as we're seeing here, she can't be a QAnon believer, and we're getting more and more. I mean, she said in a speech that Pelosi was guilty of treason, and treason's punishable by death. To a crowd on a bullhorn, she said that. I mean, That's
And the treason and all that stuff doesn't happen without the people who harbored and are still harboring the big lie.
Yeah.
That's the key to what ties Kevin McCarthy and Mike Pence. If he was in that picture, if Kevin McCarthy's big head on Saturday or Friday was in the way of Mike Pence, who they tried to show that might be his tie, if Mike Pence is sitting there with Trump and Kevin McCarthy in Mar-a-Lago this weekend, we don't know because Kevin's head is about this big on the screen. And he did that on purpose just to be as big as he could so they couldn't see who was behind him. But it's Trump and another guy and McCarthy. Why is McCarthy still in Congress, let alone going to be able to vote in this impeachment thing or have anything to say in it at this point?
Yeah. He's the ex-president. So why would you contact an ex-president during a impeachment is your point. You're basically visiting with the witness.
Yeah.
You're the prosecutor and you've gone and visited with the witness.
And then Mike Pence may be sitting there and how does this work, man?
I mean, we allowed this, unfortunately, we allowed this to happen the first trial. Remember when Devin Nunes was running across next street telling Donald Trump what they were doing? This is something we allowed to happen. They didn't sanction Devin Nunes for that. They should have.
Yeah.
Because it's not appropriate to do that. But we're starting to allow too many things that are not normal. And once you allow that to happen, it just keeps on happening.
Well, we've become such a nation of scofflaws under Trump. I was thinking about the next time I go to Yellowstone and I'm going to stand up at Old Faithful and the park ranger is going to go, now don't step over this line or you'll go to federal prison for 20 years, like they say to you when you're there, and they don't want you to ruin Old Faithful. And the next time I'm there, I'm going to jokingly say, yeah, but not in America. Because in America, you can do anything you want. You can go into the Capitol and rub shit on the walls and be considered a protester. You can have people go, I don't know if we should arrest him or not. We should think about it in the FBI.
How many Republicans aren't offended that they carried a Confederate flag, a secessionist flag during an insurrection?
Yeah.
How
are there any Republicans that are so offended by that they're ready to speak up?
How about the fact that a Republican would even touch a Confederate flag? I
thought the Democrats were the racist. I thought the Republicans were the party of Lincoln. I've heard that all year.
I thought that was a Democrat.
These high and mighty folks who would say Trump's not a racist, and that the Democrats are the racist party, the party of the Klan, the party of the Civil War, and that they were the Republicans of. Am I wrong, Jeff? Is this not what you hear?
No, that's absolutely the rhetoric. They do not believe the big flip happened. They believe we are still the party of slavery in the Klan. Even when Trumpers allow, I mean, let's be honest. If you're at a Black Lives Matter protest, let's just say we all chose to go to a peaceful protest in our city for Black Lives Matter. Can you imagine someone walking up with a Confederate flag?
No.
Oh.
The entire group would be like, what are you doing?
Right.
Put that back in your car, and we don't even want to just put it in your car and drive home with it.
And you go home because you had that shit.
No one would let you participate, even in a riot, even in a Black Lives Matter riot. They would turn on you for having a Confederate flag.
It's kind of like that statement where there were good people on both sides. People don't understand that if you're in a protest or a rally or whatever, and you turn around and there are people with swastikas and Nazi, you should go, I'm in the wrong group. I need to go now. You don't keep on going, yeah, but they're not with me. I'm here for different reasons. No.
Right.
They're with you now. You're there. Because I can guarantee if I walk outside, there's a whole bunch of people walking around, and there are people wearing have Confederate flags, Nazi flags, whatever. I'm not joining that group. That group is not for me. It doesn't matter if I'm going for other reasons. Once you're in that group, that's it. You have freedom to leave that group, but you didn't. Now you're part of that group.
I agree. I think that's a perfect litmus test to tell if you're on the right side or the wrong side of an issue. Even if it's a patriotic issue, if you show up to a protest and there's Nazi flags on your side of the issue, you're on the wrong side.
You're already lost. We are not.
You shouldn't be aligned with Nazis. That's just how simple it is.
It's
The
really
real
easy.
issue is that, the conspiracy theory and the division that we have between Republicans and Democrats is there's so much anger fueling it. You don't embrace a conspiracy theory that is dangerous at the level of anti-vaxxing, dangerous at the level of denying Sandy Hook even happened, unless you're an angry person. Watching Green follow that victim from Sandy Hook down the street and yell at him. Did you guys see that video?
Yep.
Yell at him that he's a liar, that he's being
Using
used
kids.
to stop. That video as a father made me so angry, and I'm like, she must have such deep-seated anger issues to be able to disassociate herself from the emotional feelings and pain she could be inflicting upon that young man, that child who suffered a huge tragedy already, and she's just rubbing it in because she's obviously not caring about his feelings because she's pissed off and she only cares about her own feelings. And we have that throughout the entire Republican Party. I don't even think it's so much an allegiance to Trump as it is an anger that they're potentially going to lose their power and their base.
And she's so into her beliefs that she doesn't understand. She followed him down the street, calling him a liar.
Exactly.
Everything she said is calling him a liar, that he has lied about his friends dying or peers. I don't know how close he was to any of the people, but his peers dying in his high school. She's just straight up saying, you're a liar, you're a liar, you're a liar. And then acts like somehow he was going to answer her questions. Like, what are you? You don't have a press pass. You're not the media. You're just some lunatic. I don't answer lunatics.
Part of any. She wasn't in Congress where she wasn't anything. The problem is, this is the problem. She has figured out that saying crazy shit gets her likes, and she is not intelligent enough to say smart shit. And smart shit, if you go out there, you don't get as many likes if you say smart shit. But when you say outrageous stuff, you get a like, and you get
bad behavior. Yeah,
and you get more likes. We are approving, and she gets more power by the crazier shit she does, and she gets it from the best of the best, Donald Trump.
She does. That's literally the tactic.
This is Donald Trump's thing. He says crazy shit, and he gets more power by it because people go, I don't agree with it, but okay. He's just asking questions.
So I can remember being in, I don't know, being a little kid and trying that out. Trying to be the naughtiest little shit that I could and see if I could get away with it. And do you know what? I didn't get away with it. The world, my dad, my mom, my teachers, my relationships, they stopped that in a variety of ways. And then I learned not to do that as a 5-year-old or a 3-year-old or an 8-year-old or whenever I tried those boundaries. Still try those boundaries because I'm a human being, right? We still push. We still have that in us. However, at some point we stopped seeking the attention from being the naughty kid. And that's
because we realize we're being known now by that bad behavior. We're ruining our own reputation is what we all realized. People started saying they don't want to be around me or they don't trust me because I'm lying and being disrespectful and dishonest. Right. And you start to realize, wow, I thought this was a smart way for me to get more money to skateboard, to rip off my buddy Ace from his milk money. But now Ace doesn't want to even talk to me because I've stolen his milk money twice. Man, this is bad. And you evaluate and you fix it. But she doesn't have that in her apparently to reevaluate her beliefs, or she's surrounded by people now as their life continues, which by the way, all these QAnon people say their regular people drop them. And now they're surrounded only by their QAnon friends. Right. Flat Earthers say the same thing. And so here they are, they're isolating themselves. They're getting rewarded by the people directly around them who they then think are smart people. And what's going to happen, of course, to Green long run, her name's going to be mud. She won't be able to work anywhere publicly. She'll be off in she'll be stuffing pillows for Mike Lindell or something.
Yeah, that's a good
one. We would hope, but as of right now, she's not getting any punishment. And they interviewed a whole bunch of constituents because I live in Georgia.
I saw those interviews.
And I'm hearing all this. Yeah, but she didn't say it when she was elected. She
That's
said it before, as if
they said all that about Trump. Yeah.
Wait a minute. The question isn't when she said it. The question is, if you had known she said this before, would you have voted for her? This is
Right.
her personality. This is how she thinks. Why should she be in Congress saying these things?
Yeah.
Well, and then the
I
other
mean,
thing
it's
I'm
up to
gonna-
us, though. Let me just say, it's up to us to be like the people that were around Marty when he was a little shit and say, listen, you're out of line. You know, Marty, you've got a great idea and you're a good kid inside, but this is some bullshit right here. You know, and if you don't straighten up, there's going to be serious consequences. We need to talk to Green that way. We need to talk to QAnon people that way. We need to confront, just like Jeff said, it's time to start confronting people with the truth when they are espousing bullshit.
Well, and part of what you're saying right there is you grab them out of the somehow we interact with them outside of their bubble, because if they're allowed to stay in the safety of the bubble, then it's all positive reinforcement inside of that, and they never encounter you, Tim. They never encounter somebody else going, Jesus, dude, get your shit together and then get back to life, because for them, they've cut that off, man.
And that it's more of this moral relativism. They say they did that before they were elected or whatever. Well, this person just got elected. So all you're saying is she did it before. We know she did it before. We've got video of it. We understand that this video is not from the future.
Yeah.
Everything she's ever done was before she was elected. She's only been elected. She's only been in office for 2 weeks. Well, you know, it's just nonsense. You're literally making an excuse that makes no sense. Oh, well, Donald Trump sexually assaulted 26 women, but that was before he ran for president.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we know. It's who he is.
He's
I mean,
been.
it's nonsense.
The other issue is there is no line anymore. There's no line of something nasty and something harmful that you can say that should not cost you your Congress. This is not a job. You're an elected official. You represent things. And guess what happens when you're an elected official and you're past of everything you have said? If you don't go back and say that was bullshit, then we're making it more legitimate because you're an elected official. People will look to her and go, well, she's an elected official. She said the stuff. She didn't have to go back and say no. She gets she gets more legitimacy than if she worked for Walmart. If she works for Walmart, I don't give a shit what she says. She shouldn't lose her job. I don't give a shit. But she's a congressperson. It makes her legitimate.
I'm thinking about the fundraising emails that I get from the Democrats, because I get them all. I'm sure if any of you have signed up for one, you also get them all. And they all are from the perspective that, oh my God, we've got to stop the barbarians at the gate. We've got to stop the Republican move on this, that, or the other. I want to switch gears on this because we're getting late and I want to move on.
That's good.
There is a different reaction with human beings, especially those in the lower and middle classes, when it comes to GameStop and Dogecoin and something else. We are seeing something that is important for us during this Biden transition and into the future. When people see an opportunity.
Go ahead. I'm just
Dogecoin. Where are we at? 40?
We're at 4 cents right now.
Or 4. I've been calling it 40 all day. But when we're seeing an opportunity to move forward, people are moving forward together on things in incredible unity without any fighting. There's not a QAnon side of the GameStop piece. There's not. It's just straight up. It's a thing. And so I wonder about this family systems dynamic we're playing in our politics. And that is that, part of it is our media as well. And I'd like to really start filleting the questions that our media folks are asking as we go forward in these shows, because Chuck Todd or any of these clowns that engage these people in more than one interview need to lose their jobs. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene shouldn't have another interview at all, ever, from any media source that's an accredited media source that wants to get, she's not worth talking to, right? What kind of a a dirty dog bunch of crap. She's going to leave. And there's, as Jeff, as you've lifted up, there's 500 and however many 535 people we could be talking to, and we're not.
Right.
So
we need to do what the Republicans basically should do, which they're not, is to basically never give her a time of day.
yes,
And that's it. And not only should we do that, we should do the same thing we do with people every time that she signs on to a bill or proposes a bill. We should bash that bill because it has her support. Just like when Republicans have a Nazi sympathizer or a outright racist, when they write a bill or they support a bill, that bill should be dead on arrival. And we should just end it right there. Oh, she signed up on that. I'm not interested to working with you. That's it.
right.
And that's it. Because if you're not going to do it, then who else?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the Democrats are I think what's going to really, and it's already happening, is you're starting to see the government move. It's
Mhm.
starting to function. I think the vaccines are going to be a key thing. I've already said that they're going to blow away the 100 million goal. And I can't believe the media is even jumping on the fact, oh, they set such a small goal. 3 weeks ago or a month ago when he said it, it was like, whoa, that's such a big goal. Can you even hit it? I was on here. I was like, they undercut that goal. They're not stupid.
Sure.
They don't just say things that they can't do. They set a good expectation and they're going to destroy it. They're probably going to hit 150, 175. And when they do it, you're going to see that government can be competent and they can function. And we need to have this government to function. And one thing is, every single time you have an anti-government, please ask that person, what do you do when there's a national disaster, when there's a huge flood or Katrina? Who fixes that? Because states don't fix that. The federal government does. This is the biggest natural disaster we've ever had. Everybody's affected. Who do you think is going to fix this issue? It's not going to be states. It's going to be the federal government. They have the big power. Katrina happens, you need the federal government. Forest fires, you need the federal government. When these big things happen, you have to have the pull of the federal government to fix it. We're finally going to see the federal government actually fixing things and not going, it's on you states. You guys go get your own PPE. You guys get your own things, do your own vaccines. You're going to start seeing it roll. And I think people are going to start moving away from politics, which unfortunately, I think some people don't need to touch politics. They don't need to read about it. They need to go do their own thing. Because when they start reading about it, they go to the crazy side. And some people just don't need to listen or do anything about politics. Go find your own hobby. That's how, I mean.
And people, we need to be ready too. The new relativism, by the way, if you guys haven't heard it, is they talk about Green or whoever, and someone will say something. Well, there was a crazy Bernie supporter that shot congressmen, what's his name? Scalise.
Steve Scalise. And
now we all need to remember this. The Congress shooter was killed by cops. Gifford got shot in the head at a public meeting by a guy who injured 20 people and killed 6, and he pled guilty and went to jail forever. So when people talk about these relative situations, well, Bernie supporter shot at the Congress. Yeah, he's dead. He was killed by the police. Do you think they should have been softer on him? They shouldn't have killed him. They shouldn't have killed him in the effort to arrest him, and he started firing on them. They should have, the point being, things have to be addressed and taken care of. And the idea that there's both sides, no, there's not both sides. Every time there's an issue, we address it. And in this case, if Green's got to go, Green's got to go. I don't care about. I mean, I care about it, but it has nothing to do with it that a Bernie supporter shot at Congress. That was solved. That problem, that issue was resolved.
And you have to isolate the
terrible.
You have to isolate the evil on this as well. Right. And that is, we now have Homeland Security has named, as well as the FBI for a while, has named that white supremacist Christian nationalists are a threat to our country. And so that's why I keep coming back to the tense with which we speak about this. It's a present tense. They're still around. They're hiding right now. They're financing each other. They're meeting on various formats. They're well organized. we need to know that they're there. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene is a spokesperson. She's a member of that ideology. We just need to name her as the terrorist that she is. Unfortunately, she's been given a title that we have to either get her out of Congress or isolate her in Congress until her state deals with her. But she cannot be tolerated, and that's going to be the move that is coming. And it's going to come in a variety of ways, but it's not happening through the media. The media is the place where these people are currently, and I'm going to say NBC News, CBS News, CNN, and all of the places that they would call left-wing media are the ones that give oxygen to this madness. They do not want to talk about how much progress Joe Biden has made in the first 10 days of his administration. They don't want to do anything but talk about that because it's not conflict, because it's helpful, because it's working. And so we have to watch that. And when people talk about the media being a left-based media, I don't want to go down this road, but I want to say this, and that is every one of the media sources that we have in this country that you and I know about are corporations. Corporations, by law, specifically corporations that trade on the stock market, by law, have to make decisions that make the company the most money possible. Not just even kind of a good idea, but the best idea to make as much money possible is what CEOs are required by law to do. So we wonder why people get involved in private prisons or why they make decisions that are just seem to be ethically horrendous. It's because they have to legally make that decision to make the stockholders as much money. It's called the American system.
Right.
All of our media
happens.
It's called capitalism. Yeah.
That's how the GameStop thing happens as well.
All of our media is corporate media. It's not left-leaning media. Most of the people that went and have jobs in media went to college and have a way of describing and asking questions that comes from a liberal thinking motif. In other words, they ask questions. But this is a bullshit argument we're having. We don't have a BBC in this country. We have a very underfunded PBS in this country. So we have corporate media that asks corporate media cash grabbing questions. Marjorie Taylor Greene should not get an editor's ink. That's what's up. That she has to because the editor has to make cash.
Well, we need to know about her. I mean,
we do need to know about her. I was going to say the same thing, Jeff.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
I need to know about
being
that
a Muslim member of Congress and have to go in and sit next to that lady, or representing the district where Sandy Hook is and having to sit in the room with that lady, try and have debate with her while she's speaking in a microphone on national television with a censored mask on. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, how are you supposed to interact with somebody like that? I mean,
I hear you. We need to know who she is, but she shouldn't be getting 2 weeks worth of coverage. Well, for the next 2 years, they go to, hey, what's the QAnon source? Marjorie Taylor Greene, how do you feel about this? And they will if we don't hold them to account.
And Mark, you make the point that here's the question. Why are they talking about her now? Why didn't they talk about her when she was running and all of us were like, hey, there's a QAnon nutbag running, and we had all these videos while she was running where we could have actually affected the race. No one was talking about that. They were talking about this QAnon, but she wasn't getting the coverage. How did she even get elected? Because the media wasn't talking about her. They just went, oh, there's a QAnon person, and that's it. She should have dropped out of the race, but she wouldn't have made it if all of these stories were on her like they are right now while she was running. But the problem with the media is they can only deal with one thing at a time, which is what Trump loves. He's figured this whole thing out. They figured out that the media can only deal with one bombshell at a time. And he knows how to control bombshells. That's how he gets out of everything. He doesn't mind if it's bad for him as long as he controls it. So if he has one bad problem, he goes, I don't really like them talking about this. Let me throw another bomb. It's bad for me, but it's not as bad as this. And then I'll throw another bomb and we'll move it and move it and move it. No one's going to talk to her next week when the trial starts. We're going to talk zero about her. It's just going to be trial stuff, which is unfortunate for Joe Biden because we're not going to talk about Joe Biden and we're going to just talk about Donald Trump again.
Luckily, Joe Biden knows this and is getting shit done because he's played this game a few
And
times.
Joe Biden is smart. This is where he gets everything that
Exactly.
would get some controversy.
Right.
done. I would
Wow.
do the same thing. Let them talk about Trump. Let me start passing the COVID relief bill now while the trial is happening. The media won't catch up to two.
Let's go around. Let's wrap this up.
Well-
It's 12:20 on the East Coast. Let's wrap this down for tonight.
Let me just say this. That's the one thing that I think was actually successful about the Trump regime is we were so fixated on Trump and whatever the latest, most egregious thing was that we weren't upset about a QAnon person getting elected to Senate. We were upset about Trump. We weren't upset that McConnell literally shut down any form of work on legislation so that he could put conservative justice after conservative justice into the courts to ensure that this type of government stays in place even after Trump. We weren't focused on that because we were too focused on Trump's bullshit. That's the only successful thing about the Trump regime, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Jeff?
Big update. They're having a bunch of healthcare workers at the Super Bowl. My wife will be one of them. She got her ticket today.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
It was a bit of a mess. My boy, my favorite politician, Roger Marshall, somehow was involved, and that created, of course, I don't know, 6 days worth of delay. The initial message was there'd be 2 tickets for her and her partner, but that was not true. It's a singular ticket. So she's going by herself, but it's hard to look a gift horse in the mouth. It came together. They actually gave her a ticket, so that's pretty cool.
Did they fly her out?
No, she has to fly herself and house herself.
Okay.
But I mean, that's a great deal. I mean, even if you paid ridiculous airfare and hotels to get a free ticket to the Super Bowl, that's a pretty big value.
Yeah,
So.
you still got that ticket, baby. That's
Yeah, you
awesome.
still got like a $20,000 ticket.
So she's good with that.
Oh yeah, she had both her vaccines weeks ago, and it should be pretty cool. I mean, if you think about it, it's going to be one of the most exclusive Super Bowls ever. I mean, there's not going to be very many people there.
Seriously.
And a lot of them are going to be healthcare workers. I guess they give a ton out in actual Tampa area, which then it makes sense. You give one ticket to a whole hospital worth of staff. That's great. They all go together. But, coming from Kansas, it's a bit of a – she's going to be flying by herself.
Elena's bringing up a good question. Is there any chance that Jeff will be at the Super Bowl? Are you –
No. I mean, again, initially the first person said 2, but it turned out to be 1. And I kind of thought almost immediately, I was like, well, it's supposed to be for people that are vaccinated. So I would have liked, ideally, they would have given her 2 tickets for her to pick a companion that also works in healthcare that's been vaccinated. Like her nurse practitioner would have been great. But, if it's only 1 ticket, it's 1 ticket. It's hard to look a gift horse in the mouth. Although, again, 6 days of waiting wasn't very fun. And then to be told it's only 1 ticket was also not fun. But, it's still a very positive
Still a
thing.
win. Yep.
Yeah, it's still a win.
That's awesome.
Leave it to the government to implement such a positive thing in such a shitty way.
Totally, absolutely. Vaccine, anybody?
Yeah,
Oh,
but it's actually good too because I'm, it's all going to be good. It'll be good.
That's awesome. Well, I will finish up with how awesome it's been to finally have a president without any issues, where we don't have any major ball drops, no hiccups. It's just moving along. He's been more progressive than I even thought. Everything he's getting done, and I'm starting to really enjoy that. I look on, and tomorrow he's going to do the biggest. He is going to announce a huge policy. I forgot on what, because it's every single day he has a theme, which I'm loving. This whole theme. Today we're just going to talk about this. Tomorrow we're going to talk about this, and so on and so on. But tomorrow he's going to do a huge theme on something big. I almost forgot what it was, but it's going to be big. And then he's just going to keep on moving. And it's really nice to see all these things. And the other thing is, as I've already said, I don't really care what the other side thinks, because none of these policies, none of these policies are like, hey, Friday, we're going to take away all your guns.
I know.
None of these policies are these policies that you should care about. The last policies that he announced was just allowing people to buy health insurance from the exchange. If you're against that, maybe you really shouldn't be part of this country. If you're just against people being able to buy health insurance at a better rate, you have issues. So I'm happy we finally have a president that functions the way and shows the dream and puts policies that we can actually do without using words like great, biggest, and easy in them. It's actual data.
Yep. Tim.
I agree 100% with what Ace is saying. It's so much easier to have the calm center that we need to engage with people who are thinking about things differently than we are. Fucking nut jobs, for one example. When you have a solid president leading the way, when you have a solid administration, we need to have a clear response to bullshit when we see it, but the example is set by our leaders. We saw the negative example that was set by Trump. I think now we get to take a deep breath and live into the positive example that Biden and Biden's administration is setting.
Amen. My last piece is I just want to recognize that we will let you all know on Thursday what we're going to do for our Super Bowl Sunday show, whether or not we'll do it or not. We'll think about that this week. But I want to say my last piece tonight is a thanks to the audience for being part of this and for promoting this, for putting up with 2.5 hours, for giving that of your life to this conversation. I don't know if you've been with us the whole time, but it means a tremendous amount to me. And I know to the rest of the crowd here that you're listening to us for this long. I'm proud to be able to host this stuff. We've got our America Heals in action. Please like, share, promote this show. And then the final thing I'm going to say is I'm just so thankful. I've honestly this weekend just had so many just moments of being thankful for Jill Biden, for Dr. Jill Biden, and what she is bringing to our White House and to the support she gives to the president and to her students because she's teaching classes. And what a perspective. Dinner time. And I know they probably only get 20 minutes together at night because I'm sure he is working like crazy. And I know she is too. But like when those two have a chance to have dinner and talk about school on the end of the day, just knowing that that's happening at the highest levels of our country is, to me, possibly one of the most healing elements through this thing that nobody's going to see. I do think we'll see the fruit of it in what Joe says and thinks about every night as he goes to bed. But and also the second gentleman, he's also doing the same thing. Those two couples are an example to a lot of us, and whether you're in a couple or not, they're solid as people. So I'm just excited about that. Just knowing that there's two dogs in the White House, for crying out loud. Yep. And what kind of insane fun that happens to be at certain times, you know?
Yep.
Just have the first lady that likes the president.
And tomorrow's going to be foreign policies. It's going to be, it says, the most substantial foreign policy remarks since he's become since he's become president, pivoting away from America first.
So tomorrow will be about NATO and what he's been doing with Europe. That's so exciting. I cannot wait. Awesome. With love and respect to everybody, thank you. Be well. Hang in there. We'll see you Thursday night. Tim, thanks for being with us, brother.
Thanks for having me. It's such an honor. To be with you guys.
Follow America Heals. We we're running out of time before Periscope pulls the cord. We really need everybody to follow us.
We are. We will be on at 10 o'clock Eastern on Thursday night. We'll see you all then. Thank you, and be well. America Heals. Woo!